Hello, everyone. Welcome to Seasons Podcast. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Doug.
And we are here for a special episode because it's Christmas time.
All right.
How excited are you?
So excited.
So excited. I can tell you love this.
Love it.
Listen, this is a bonus episode. We are at the end of our second season, getting ready for season 3, but we're not quite there yet. But we wanted to just take this time, this opportunity that we have to soak in what the season is. It's a Seasons podcast, so we can't miss out on the Christmas season. And Doug, I know we're going to talk about some fun stuff, some memories, but we're also going to just reflect on, this is a holiday season that happens every year, but the reality is the season of life you're in may change. And you're ahead of me in life, and our lives look different. So could you just kind of kick us off talking about like what it looks like to experience different seasons of life as we head into Christmas and what realities people could be facing?
Yeah, I think, we all go back to the reflection moment of when we were little and our parents got us gifts and we're under the tree and we opened the big wheel. We were just talking about our favorite gift. What was your favorite gift ever as a kid?
Oh, Super Nintendo. Okay. Like that was incredible.
See,
Best day of my life.
Atari.
What is that? Just joking. I know.
Yeah, so you go from the seasons of I can't wait to see what I got to then it becomes I can't. This is a season where we're so glad to be together as you get older, go to graduate high school, go to college. And then, we went through the season of having kids. We went through the season of loss. So I remember the Christmas with our son, Jordan, and my wife and I reflected in front of the Christmas tree, like, this is probably our last Christmas with our son.
Wow.
And so there are moments of deep sadness where you still celebrate Christmas. And then there's seasons where you're raising your own kids and you live vicariously through them because you remember what it was like to be in the pajamas, waking up early in the morning, and now you're the one getting the gifts. And, we always said, like, Santa Claus is not getting credit for this. Mom and Dad bought this. God loves you, but we did it.
They worked hard for this. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then we went through the season this last December of like our son's moving out. And last December, our son got married. So then Christmas was, now we have a daughter-in-law. So now you're adding people to your Christmas season, which is different. And this year we'll be empty nesters completely. So we'll probably come home and look at each other and go, it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
This is really weird. Like the kids will come and then they'll leave.
Yeah.
And I know that there are seasons ahead of us, my parents, that have been empty nesters for a long time now, grandkids. So, and then there's seasons of loss where now you're not with your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister. And so Christmas has a way to bring all those moments all together. And for some people, it's moments of great joy and expectation. For some, it's like deep sadness and loss.
Yeah.
And yet, Christmas is that beautiful moment of hope for all of us.
Yeah. And I think that is a good place to start of just the reality that Christmas comes every year, but humanity gives us this reality that every year for us looks different. No matter if it's seasons of loss and grief or if it's new achievements and new family members, new seasons of life, whatever it is. I know for myself, like I'm in my 30s, I'm single, but my family has changed. I'm still experiencing new dynamics. I'm experiencing sometimes being with friends for Christmas instead of family. And there's also the reality for some people, like I have the privilege and I'm so grateful that Christmas has always been, no matter hard time, I have these incredible memories to remember, this incredible anchor of having a great childhood. But sometimes if you didn't have that experience, Christmas can be a really, really hard season to face. So we want to talk to everyone, no matter what season you're in, season of life, season of loss or new hope, new expectancy, just about what the season has to offer, no matter who you are or what you're experiencing. And before we get into all of that, I want to just bring you back to Christmas and for both of us just to share maybe a favorite memory. Cue the jingle bells, you guys. I want to hear them. Okay. What for you is like the best Christmas memory or something that it makes you smile when you think back to like a Christmas memory with family or friends?
Yeah, so one that just came to me was my grandfather lived till he was 93 years old, and probably the last 15, 20 years of his life, he would recruit us to go ring the bell for the Salvation Army for those red buckets.
Yeah.
So like he would do it for like 2 weeks. And my grandfather was like, we're going to win this competition. Like he'd put a check in the bucket to make sure his bucket had more than everybody else's. So, and it was like, just the idea that families do outreach together, even if it's ringing a bell in front of, the Broward Mall, which is where we went.
Yeah.
And it was just something that, I just remember all these moments where he would laugh at people and say hi to people. And that's like a great legacy my grandfather left us. Like we all rang the bell with grandpa.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a pastor's daughter, so Christmas was
I'm so
always.
sorry.
Thank you.
There's hope for you.
Thank you, Dad. I love you so much. There was this. As a kid, I looked at this moment of Christmas where I always saw movies of kids coming down the stairs to Santa had come and everything is, wrapped. At our house, I helped wrap the gifts. Like I knew typically what I was getting or what was going to be under the tree. And what mattered most at Christmas was the Christmas story. We would read the Christmas story. But my dad got more inventive over the years. And one of my favorite memories that has come up in the last decade is that it's Christmas story trivia. So he picks out some of the hardest questions of the story, some of the smaller characters or the smaller details. And it tests each of us, my siblings, my mom, and now my nieces and nephews, which is so fun. But it always brings us back to there's a greater part of what we're doing than just the gifts. And I think you experience that through serving at Christmas. It's bigger than just that morning or that evening and around the tree opening gifts. There's a whole season of invitation to that reality. So I want to anchor us there that what is true for all of us is what Christmas is all about, that God came for us. Yeah. And it says he shall be called Emmanuel, God with us. So can you just talk a little bit about how can that be an anchor in someone's life that is experiencing a Christmas that is going to be hard without anybody that they maybe they've lost somebody they love, or maybe Christmas looks different because families are split or there's a new dynamic.
Yeah, I think the reality is that we see a spike in all these mental health issues and depression and suicide attempts around the holiday because people are experiencing Christmas in a way that's hard for them to process. So if people are lonely, that just is exponentially, experience for them in those moments. And so like, what do they do with that? If there's a grudge in the family, so you used to spend all these Christmases together and now there's unforgiveness and now you can't talk to your aunt or your cousin or your sister or your brother or your son or your daughter, the sense of loneliness and separation and I'm all by myself is magnified. And so a lot of people don't know what to do with that. And, one of the things I love, I'm going to read my favorite Christmas quote, and it's going to be, well, it might be easy to understand right away, but to me, this captures like what Christmas is all about. And this is Frederick Buechner. He says, once we have seen Jesus in the stable, we can never be sure where he will appear or what lengths he will go or to what ludicrous depths of self-humiliation he will descend in his wild pursuit of men. And the idea is like in the manger, we see God pursuing us at our most broken state. And so for me, that to me is the essence of the gospel of Christmas, that no matter how lonely you are, how broken your life is, how disconnected you are from family or friends or the dream you had for life itself or Christmas, Jesus is still pursuing you. And he pursues you as a baby in a manger. And he's willing to humiliate himself so that you could know that he's with you and you could know that he hasn't given up on you. And to me, that's the anchor of Christmas. It's the hope of the gospel.
Yeah, and I think people come into this season with so much, whether it's nostalgia or this expectation or comparison to what they've experienced before. And that can create this dissonance of like, things are never going to be the way they were because I've lost that grandpa or my family, my parents divorced, or I'm alone this year. And yet there's this truth that's true every year. And it's actually true every day that Jesus is pursuing us with great length, that we would experience life with him. And what Christmas does is it gives us that almost like memorial stone of like, don't forget that this is true. That in this season, it almost magnifies your circumstance, but then reminds you of that simple reality of like, God is with you. He came for you. So for you, was there a season in your life, you talked about, Jordan, the loss of your son, was there moments that was truer for you, that it really came to life during Christmas that you can remember?
Yeah, I think the hardest parts about those Christmas seasons is where you're in between here and there. So, for us, we went through a season in like 97, 98 where we were in between, the birth of a son and the death of a son. We were in between a church that we loved and a church that fell apart. Wow. We were in between, a friendship that broke apart. And so we're in this in-between space of new friendships haven't emerged, a new church hasn't developed, we haven't had any more children, but we knew what it was like before.
Yeah.
And so it was like you're just living in loss, and you don't really know what the future is, but you know that God's with you. So I think those are the moments where you have to lean in a little bit and say, God is still who he says he is, and he still has a good plan for us. And we're in that middle space. We're in the waiting space. And I think that's where faith develops. I think that's where grit develops. I think that's where you learn to sing songs that you know the words, but you don't necessarily feel it when you sing it.
Yeah.
But you keep singing it.
Yep.
And then eventually, you realize you're singing it and you believe it again, or you feel it again. And I think that's what we experience in like 97, 98, 99 in our lives, the 𝘲𝑗 family.
And I love that you brought up songs, because I think Christmas songs, some of them are some of the richest lyrics you can find, and they just become tradition to us. But I think if we really take the time to sit in them, explore them, listen to them, and sing along, it brings us back to that anchoring moment of, like, I sang this 10 years ago and maybe didn't feel the same, but it's still true, and it's still for me, and I can celebrate what the song says about our Savior.
Yeah, I think when you watch all these movies around Christmas time and people experience this brokenness, it's always them walking down the street when everything's falling apart. They hear a Christmas carol, and something changes in their mind because they realize those words that are sometimes 2,000 years old are shaping the reality of how they see their present circumstances. And that's the power of Christ's arrival in the world. Yeah.
And I think it's no surprise, it's not lost on God that Christmas sits right before this time, then that we go into a new year. And so you have this beautiful reminder of God coming for us, and then this opportunity to reflect and to carry things with you or leave things behind as you enter into a new year. So this is something that I feel like you are so good at least as I observe your rhythms and the way that you and Suzanne, even as a family, kind of take in that season. You find those opportunities for reflection, and you're a journaler, you write things down. So can you help people listening on how to approach this opportunity that they have to reflect and take stock, but also to have a hopeful expectation of what's to come no matter what you're facing?
Yeah, so when I was in my 20s and 30s, I didn't like traditions. I thought traditions were like things that held you back, that held you in the past. And I've learned to love traditions. I learned to create new traditions. So, we always read the Christmas story before we unwrap gifts. We always wrap up baby Jesus. And we always do certain things. We always have a certain meal for Christmas morning. Our sons all run and jump in the pool if they're around.
Wow, Florida Christmas. It's supposed to be cold.
And so those things sort of become like moments. And one of our moments is we always go for 17 or 18 years to the same place in North Carolina. And literally that week between Christmas and New Year's, we go for these walks around the lake. So I'll take my walk just all by myself, and then I'll take it with each of my sons. I'll take it with my wife. And it's our way to go on a walk, and we're going to talk about the year. What did God show you? What are you excited about? What are you disappointed about? What surprised you? And those moments of walking with my sons or my wife or just walking with God over the years, that tradition has created like the Bible talks about like a Bethel, a place where you go back to. Jacob always went back to this one place where he first experienced who God was. And he kept circling back there at different moments in his life. And so I'd encourage Christians, find your Bethel, find the tradition or the place or the thing that you do every year, because it'll anchor you in the reality of who God is in you and your family's life, and it'll help you to experience his love in all the different seasons of life. You just keep going back to the same place. And the first thing I do on my walk with God is, so I was here a year ago, and here's what was happening. And now all these things have happened. So let's talk about it. And it was just kind of like that kind of conversation. And so
because I think finding that Bethel place, some people want to avoid it because it comes with a lot of pain or reminders of what's not there anymore. Or, the season is marked by like losses. And yet if you return back to that place, you can remember, like you're saying, where you were a year ago, but also remember 5 years ago and how much change has come. And that with the loss and the grief, there's also been extreme joy and extreme celebration. And so it's a great way to remember. I think Suzanne said it in our first episode ever in season 1, that tunnel, that sometimes, you're moving forward and it seems dark, but as you take a step forward, another step, eventually the light will come. And that's navigating the holiday season, but that's that Bethel invitation of keep coming back and you'll see the way that God has worked in your life or worked in your circumstance or brought things to fruition.
Yeah, when I think, people experiencing loneliness during the holidays, one of the questions that if they're courageous, they'll ask the question, why am I lonely? And if you can have the courage to ask yourself that question and then follow the question wherever it leads you. So some people are lonely because they have unforgiveness between them and a friend or grudges between them and a family member. And they have all these people around them that they would love to celebrate the holidays with and that would love to celebrate the holidays with them. But there's this thing that they haven't wrestled with. And it's like, well, they said this and this is the event. This is my perception of the event. I've ruminated about this over and over again. And I've concluded,
I'm not going to let it go unless, or whatever it is.
And so a lot of people are lonely, not because necessarily of death or sickness, but because of their own personal issues with someone else. And the end of the year is a great time to go, man, if Jesus came in pursuit of me and forgave me for all of that, could I not let this go and just send a text or a phone call or build a bridge and just see if God could restore some of that relationship so I don't feel that sense of loneliness or separation? Because we don't want loneliness to turn into self-pity. We want loneliness to be a catalyst that God fills that space and then pushes us out of that isolation into community.
Yeah, and you just think, stack up that hurt or pain or whatever that thing is that keeps you. And I think that's very relatable. Like a lot of people listening probably have a family member or someone in their life that they're like, yeah, I don't go because of them or they don't come anymore because of me or whatever it is. But is that hurt worth, the missing out of the joys and the memories and what's on the other side of reconciliation, forgiveness, or just learning to healthfully disagree on things? And it's a good word for today in just where we're at in our politics and in our cancel culture and all the things that have become almost trendy to adapt our lives around, that we pull ourselves out of situations that are they're able to be mended. It just takes us allowing that space and that forgiveness in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the cancel culture, which is sort of a very self-righteous way to go. I'm right and other people are wrong, so I'm not talking to grandma anymore. Yeah. And if you cut off grandma and your aunt and your mom and your sister and your friend, then you're going to find yourself in a very lonely place and you're going to be right all by yourself. Right, all by yourself. And that's a rough place to be right all by yourself. If only people would see it my way, then I could have good relationships. And that's what self-righteous does. It isolates you from community and puts you in this little space all by yourself. And the gospel is, that quote I read, it's like God pursues us, and then Paul says God's given us the same pursuit, the ministry of reconciliation. So what Jesus did by coming to this table, humiliated himself in pursuit of us, like now we've been given that mantle, so we get that baton. So now who can I pursue where I'm gonna have to humble myself or humiliate myself to build a bridge back to family or back to God? Like that's my job now. That's what Christmas is. Yeah, and that nobody wants to do that, because the idea of humiliating yourself has a negative connotation. But what we see with what Christ did for us, it has the greatest outcome, which is a promise and a hope for us that on the other side of us humbling ourselves or coming to a point of humiliation in our own families and friendships, there is a hopeful expectation of what would be on the other side. So it is a challenge to everyone. I know that it can seem hard or maybe even impossible, but I think God honors the pursuit of reconciliation. Yeah, I mean, I think we've just been conditioned. Everything we look at is Christmas is about you, the gift you want. This is what people. You go to the church that has the best service for you. You go to outreach that makes you feel good. It's all about us. And if you feed that too much, you're going to miss what Christmas is all about, and you're going to end up feeling this sense of like aloneness, or I say it's like drinking salt water. The more salt water you drink, the thirstier you get, because you're not quenching the thirst of your soul. You're just trying to feed your desires, and that's not going to lead you to what Christmas is about. Yeah, so that gives us a good
segue, I think, into what is something positive to do this Christmas season. I think it's a great season to give back and to serve and to be generous. And so for anyone listening, what are some, like you talked about doing the bell ringing Salvation Army thing, but what are just some general things that people could do this holiday season to maybe get out of their regular rhythms of focusing on themselves, or to start new traditions with family that is more than themselves?
Yeah, one of the traditions that we started with our kids was, having them interact with the poor on a regular basis. So the one thing that every parent wants to figure out is, how do I teach my kids gratitude? And they think, I'll teach them gratitude by getting them this really great stuff. I'll take them to Disney World, I give them this brand new thing.
Yeah.
That's not how you teach gratitude. That's how you entitle people.
Yeah.
So the way you teach gratitude is you take them to a place where they don't have anything that you have, and that you see those people are happy, and those people have great relationships, and there's something beautiful. So when we took our kids to third world countries, for instance, they would come back so grateful for air conditioning and their bed and the toys they had, and they'd want to give their toys to the kids they met.
Yeah.
So finding ways to interact with people who are vulnerable, people who are poor, people who don't have, and that interaction changes you versus, what are all the things you want? I'm going to get you everything. Right. And that's what can ruin someone. So trying to find ways to interact with the people that are in need, it's not just an act of charity, it changes you.
Yeah, and I think even something I've learned from you and just your context of where you live, you have neighbors that you've known for a long time. And so I live in an apartment building, condo building that, we have maybe more turnover in apartments than maybe in a neighborhood, but still knowing who is struggling in a season like that, noticing a widow or maybe a new family in the neighborhood, there's an opportunity to go and say hello to them, or invite them to church with you, or just let them enter into your season of the rhythms that you already hold in your season, that may extend them hope in the Christmas time, or just a new friend. So do you have any wisdom for how to navigate those conversations for people, or entering in that space?
Yeah, I mean, before COVID, if you remember what that was, we would open our home every Christmas, and all the neighbors would come over on a certain day. And we just kind of let everyone bring a dish and just kind of hang out. And it lasts for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually just for that. It was for all the conversations that would lead to the rest of the year.
Yep.
And so you're walking down the street, you find out your neighbor has cancer. You walk down the street, you find out, your neighbor's son just got arrested and needs someone to go visit him in jail. You meet someone who's never asked Christ into their life, and they're asking all these spiritual questions. Like, all those things happen as a result of those little parties we did.
Yeah.
And we didn't necessarily present the gospel at all the parties. Sometimes we invited people to church. Sometimes we just prayed for everyone and said, if you ever need anything, we would love to serve this neighborhood and help if there's something we can do. So I think there's moments of hospitality and moments of, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes, like, who's going to show up at my house?
Right. Yeah. Yes, that is something.
We won't talk about fear. Fear is another podcast.
Get that out of here.
But it's uncomfortable, but it creates some really, people walk in your house like, is it okay? I'm in my neighbor's house. And it breaks down barriers. So.
Yeah, and it can be the same inviting people to church. I think for us who work at a church, we want people to come, but obviously inviting them, people who you don't know exactly what faith looks like in their life or a relationship with Jesus, it can be like, try out this thing, but we hope you like it, but Christmas is a great opportunity to invite people to a service with you, or to maybe a caroling event or something, because like we mentioned earlier, those songs or those traditions may remind them of a truth that they held on to as a child, or about the Christmas story that they heard from a grandparent. And so I'm excited always around the Christmas season of just maybe who might come that normally never would. And then the opportunity they have to receive this invitation from Jesus to truly be their savior in their life. So this is your opportunity, you guys, for all of you listening, to invite that friend, that neighbor into your home or into your church, and see what God might do with that invitation. So as we wrap up this episode, any other wisdom, any other Christmas cheer you want to spread as we go into this holiday season?
Yeah, I think that, we think about how you spend your time, and think about it maybe, weeks in advance, like, who are the people I really want to spend time with? It's my immediate family, it's the grandparents, it's this small group of friends. So we sort of carve out for ourselves, like, there's 5 or 6 groups that we're going to connect with. That's part of our family tradition that emanates from family to really good friends, to sort of neighbors and people we don't know as much, so that there's a you don't just, it's not just going to happen. If you don't schedule, if you don't plan,
Right.
it doesn't just happen. You know, and so putting those things on the calendar now. So like, what are we going to do for outreach? My wife's always the one who we're gonna love and bless this Christmas season. And she's like, and I'm like, well, we do this. She's like, no, who? Tell me their names. And so she forces me to figure out who's that single mom, that widow, who's that person who's in need that we can either financially help or just show up in their life and bless them. And so it's being intentional in November so that when you get to December, you're not, like this, hostage to the calendar, the social calendar of everyone inviting you to places, and you're not thinking about how to plan your time well.
Yeah. So my biggest takeaway from our time that I just want to share with everybody is don't miss out on Christmas by making it all about you.
There you go.
Right?
Perfect.
Does that sum it up okay?
Sounds good.
And remember that there's this invitation to remember that God is with us. That is the beauty of Christmas, that he came for us and that now he's with us all the time, no matter what season you're in. As we talk about seasons, and we're going to go into a new season of this podcast, that truth is still the same, and it's that anchor for this holiday season.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, everyone, Merry Christmas.
Merry
we hope
Christmas.
that you're able to experience the joy that it fills this season, and we look forward to a new season coming in the new year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for listening to the Seasons Podcast. Our hosts are Pastor 𝘼𝙑𝙑 and 𝘾𝙃𝘼𝙋𝙀𝙑. Seasons is produced by Calvary Chapel Fort Lauderdale, and our theme song is Seasons by Connor Henderson with Calvary Music. For more information about our church or this podcast, visit calvaryftl.com.